You're listening to the DJ Doran Show, a Doran Omni Media production. Warning, the DJ Doran Show contains adult language, mature content, cerebral debate, and thought-provoking conversation. Listener discretion is advised. Call 312-235-2281 to be a part of the discussion. That's 312-235-2281. And now, Chicago's perspicacious host of your sane radio obsession, DJ Doran.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're back. We are creating another episode. Before we begin, I must share the heartbreaker that was our earlier endeavor attempt.
We tried.
We created a whole hour-long show. It was awesome. We had a lot of fun.
It was a good one.
It was a good one. And then I realized that I chose the wrong microphone source for Rachel, and so her voice didn't even get recorded. And because we were both speaking into the same microphone, the recording was completely echoey and sounded like we were in some sort of echo chamber. And so as a result, that whole hour-long episode was ruined.
So here we are.
Round two.
Doing it again.
And so today's show, we are going to be talking about a project that is near and dear to my heart called PrideFlight. And if you don't know what it is, you can go to prideflight.org, which is the website, or you can find PrideFlight on Facebook and learn a little bit about the project. So, Rachel, do you know what PrideFlight is?
A little bit.
So I'll tell you, and then we can get right into it. So PrideFlight is an attempt by me as a pilot to fly a World War II era DC-3 around the globe to, number one, be in the record books as the first openly gay pilot to circumnavigate the globe by air, and number two, fly a goodwill mission stopping at over 42 different locations across the globe and interacting with LGBT groups, organizations, and communities worldwide to bring a spotlight to them that they otherwise may not have the opportunity to have. And so that, in essence, is what PrideFlight is about. It is about a gay pilot trying to overcome a human obstacle, which is flying a big metal tube with wings that span 95 feet around the world. And it is going to be difficult. It is going to be dangerous, and it is going to be arduous. But if I don't kill myself in the process, then it would be worthwhile. And I'm going to try it. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the project when we come back. But I have this clip that I found on YouTube that I'm going to play. So it gives you a little bit of an intro into the DC-3. It's not very long, but it is kind of cool. So hold on, and I'm going to play clip one.
DC-3, the plane that helped the airlines grow and taught the public to fly, that helped win World War II and lived on to perform service around the world today. Come meet that airplane, the DC-3.
Well, I know I told you it wasn't very long. But I have the whole clip. It's like a YouTube video, and it's an hour long, and that's just the beginning of it. So I'm going to try and play excerpts of it throughout the show, and because there's some interesting tidbits. But so, do you know what a DC-3 is? Are you familiar with the DC-3?
Not really.
So the DC-3 was built by the McDonnell Douglas Company in California a little bit before World War II, and it started out as a DC-1. Then they started out as that DC-1 as the prototype, and then there was a DC-2. It could carry 14 passengers, and then eventually the president of TWA, his name was Jack Fry, he wanted a bigger airplane so that it could carry more passengers, which would eventually make the airline profitable. And so the latest and last iteration of the DC model was the DC-3. And so it could carry, I think, 21 passengers. So, this airplane really is an icon of aviation, and it ushered in an era where air travel became more affordable for the average American. So it really was, if you will, the parent of aviation, of civilian aviation. And up until then, trains were like the predominant form of travel, and only the really wealthy could fly. And when they flew airplanes that had 3 or more motors, like the Ford Tri-Motor had 3 motors. But Mr. Douglas came up with this design. It had 2 engines, twin-engine airplane. And because of the large wingspan, it could carry a lot of weight and a lot of passengers. And so now people could, whereas it would take a very long time to cross country, they could actually cross the United States in 3 days with 3 stops for fuel. So it really made the United States much more accessible to people. So that's the DC-3. So there's a couple of fun facts about it. I'm going to read up a couple of things. It was like 65 feet long, roughly, had a 95-foot wingspan. And the cool thing is about it, it could carry a lot of cargo. You could stuff it with cargo. It had like a 8 or 900 gallon fuel tank. I think some of the later versions, the military versions, had larger fuel tanks, but 900 gallons was a lot. It's a lot for an airplane of that time. And then, of course, it had the 3 bladed propellers. By today's standards, it didn't fly very fast, about 200 knots, not much faster than a Cessna 172 or the Piper Arrow that I fly, which is a single engine plane. But back then, that was pretty fast, and that's what made airlines make money, is because now they could carry more passengers for longer distances. And, cruise about 180 knots, it could fly up to 23,000 feet if it needed to, but it wasn't pressurized. They didn't have oxygen, so most flights were pretty low because you have to fly below 10,000 feet. Anything above 10, 11,000 feet, the air gets too thin and people would get hypoxia, pass out, die, of course, But anyway, so this was a really cool airplane. It's oftentimes been referred to as a pilot's airplane because it's very hardy, very sturdy, but you can't just let it go. You actually have to fly it. You have to control the controls. It's a very mechanical aircraft, but it has heavy-duty landing gear because it could land on unprepared fields, grass or dirt, not just paved runway. And that was... that was the benefit of it. That was the beauty of it. And then, of course, World War II came around, and we all know, well, most of us who know about World War II history would know that the DC-3, or the military version, the C-47, was a workhorse for cargo and paratroopers during the war. So that's why I chose that plane, because it could take a licking and keep on ticking. It can fly into all sorts of runways, a 10,000-foot runway or a 5,000-foot dirt runway. It didn't matter. It can handle everything in between. And it's a hardy airplane. So I chose that airplane. And then when we come back from this quick break, I'm going to tell you, first of all, how PrideFlight started, what the original concept and idea was for, and how it came to be, and then what's going on forward. So don't go anywhere. We will be back in just a moment. You're listening to the DJ Doran Show. This episode of the DJ Doran Show is brought to you by our friends at Joe Eats World, featuring Chef Joe Morales as he eats and drinks his way through life, sharing recipes, dining experiences, and cooking tips. Be sure to follow him at joeeatsworld.com and on his Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
You're listening to the DJ Doran Show. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Call 312-235-2281 to speak to DJ.
All right, well, we're back, and that was interesting. So we're just trying to work out some sound issues, so hopefully it sounded okay. Anyway, we're back. We're talking about PrideFlight. That's what the topic of today's show. So I was telling Rachel before the break what a DC-3 is and a little bit of history of the DC-3. And so now we're going to talk about PrideFlight and how it came about and why I think it's important. So many of you may or may not know, but I'm in publishing, so I own several publications. I'm also the president of the National Equality Media Association and the managing director of Diversitas Media. And so I'm very involved in LGBT media. And in this day and age with President Trump in the White House, it is a very volatile, sometimes depressing, oftentimes controversial time to be in media, LGBT or otherwise for that matter. And a few years ago, I had purchased a local LGBT newspaper in Indianapolis, Indiana, and little did I know that there was a big controversy brewing just, underneath the surface of what was going on there. So we purchased the publication in Indianapolis, and I convinced my partner, now husband, Joe Morales, to pack up our things like the Beverly Hillbillies and made our way to Indianapolis because I felt like I needed to be there to stutter. I needed to be there to turn the paper around. Anyway, when we got there, what we realized is that Governor Mike Pence, now our vice president, but the governor of Indiana back then, had tried to push through this legislation called SB 101, which was very discriminatory towards LGBT
Sounds about right.
people. And so I was like, this can't stand. So Joe and I were at a conference in Los Angeles, and oh my God, the uproar was crazy, and people were telling everyone, boycott Indiana, cancel your travel plans, don't go to Indiana, boycott Indianapolis, and it was very bad. And I finally at one point stood up and said, please don't boycott Indiana or Indianapolis. I just bought a publication there, and it's going to hurt me. You're going to hurt me. The people you're trying to protect, you're going to hurt. So after the conference, we went back to Indianapolis, and there was a lot of uproar, and I met with Mike Pence and his wife, Karen.
Oh, did you? Oh, yeah, I think you told me that before.
And believe me, he's nothing special to write home about. He's not very bright, and I realized right away that his wife is the power behind the throne.
Right,
and more than anything,
you told me that.
She's the religious zealot, and he, I'm sure they have a secret closet in their house, and and he hangs from one of the hooks, and she wears a leather outfit. I can almost guarantee that'll come out. But anyway, that's just my own opinion.
I can picture it.
Yeah, but anyway, he's a weird character. He has no lips either. He has a slit for a mouth, and he shakes hands like a limp fish. So, which is one of my pet peeves. Anyway, so I met him, and there was a lot of negativity towards the LGBT community in Indiana, especially, and so a lot of backlash. Everybody had strong opinions. There was a lot of bickering, and so forth. So I would come home and I would tell Joe, it's like, there's got to be something positive that we can do. I mean, writing about what was happening in Indianapolis and Indiana at the time was depressing. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a huge fan of Indianapolis. I'll put that right out there.
On the record.
But still, there was a lot of negativity. And I was trying to make a life there. We were trying to, to get to know the community. We weren't from there. We didn't know anybody. We weren't involved in the gay community. I tried to be active. So I went to bed one night, and I was thinking that was kind of preying heavy on my mind was, what can I do? What can I do with the limited resources that I had, but using my skill set? Some people say, oh, I'm going to volunteer, or I'm going to do this or that. So I was like, what do I have in my tool bag that I could do that would be an epic thing, that would bring, instead of the national focus being boycott Indiana and everyone saying how backwards Indiana was and how horrible Mike Pence was and this and that, and nobody go there and just ostracize the state or the city. Mm-hmm. I couldn't figure it out. So I went to bed, and I woke up suddenly in the middle of the night, and I was like, I know what I want to do. And I wrote on a sticky, fly around the world, and I stuck it to the screen of my computer, and then I went back to bed. So the next morning, I get up, and I'm talking to Joe over coffee, and I said, I want to fly around the world. And he goes, what? I said, I want to fly around the world. And I said, and I want to fly a DC-3. He goes, a DC-3? What is that? And I said, it's one of my favorite airplanes of all time. And it's always been one of my favorites. And I said, I want to fly a DC-3. And he goes, I'd never even heard of that. And we were talking, and I told him what it was. It was a World War II aircraft, and it was older and so forth, but it was a really cool airplane. And so he's like, yeah. So I started Googling DC-3s for sale all over the world. They're all over the world. They still fly them a lot in South America, too, by the way. Huh. They rely on them to fly into these local, remote villages and towns to bring food and medical supplies to the people that live there. And so after about, 2 or 3 days of searching, I found one. Huh. I found one in Ensenada, Mexico. And so I reached out to the guy that owned it and immediately made arrangements to fly to Ensenada to see it. So friend of mine at the time and I bought some tickets, and we flew out there and saw the plane, and I immediately fell in love, and in my mind, I could envision what this plane would look like and how glamorous it would be to fly around the world, and it would be such a head turner, and there would be all this global support and blah, 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 blah. Well, came back to the United States. I told Joe, I said, I found a plane, and I'm going to write a contract for it. And he's like, what? Where are we going to keep it? And all these different things. And I said, well, the good thing is it's not ready to leave Ensenada. It's going to take a while to get it ready to leave. And that'll give me time to raise the money. He goes, how are you going to raise the money? I said, well, I've raised money before for real estate deals and in other deals. And they were only asking $70,000, give or take a few $1,000 for the airplane. I thought, how hard can that be? And I had seen couple of other projects where they raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so I thought, I'm going to create this project. The LGBT community is going to rally behind me. We're going to have a crowdfunding campaign. People are going to donate $1. If 70,000 people donate $1, I'll have the money I need, and I'll raise all the money for the restoration, and we'll have an army of volunteers. And it'll be great. Everyone will come out. There'll be photo ops, and everyone will be excited. The plane will fly in. It'll make a big media splash, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm the publisher of a local LGBT newspaper. I can put it on the front page, and that's going to get all this attention. And I just went, in my mind, I went, cuckoo, cuckoo, cuckoo. And I did. I wrote a story. I put the picture of the plane on the front page of the newspaper. I went to one of the most popular gay bars, and I gave a speech about PrideFlight and what it was going to take and all of this. And I named the plane the Bag Lady after a local drag organization in Indianapolis that does terrific work and raises a ton of money for the community. The founder of the Bag Lady, Gary Brackett, a.k.a. Cadillac Barbie, is the founder of the Gay Pride Parade in Indianapolis, deservedly so. The parade is named after him. And so it's Cadillac Barbie Pride Parade. He and I would sit down and we would talk, and I decided I'm going to name the plane the Bag Lady. Because Bag Lady, in essence, was like a vagabond, the actual definition of it. And in essence, that's what the plane was going to do. She was going to travel across the world as a vagabond, country to country to country. No real home, but just travel around. So I paid some money and had a caricature made using the founder of the Bag Ladies, Blossom. And I proceeded to announce to the world PrideFlight. I got a little bit of press in some of the other newspapers around the country, but in general, I was in Indianapolis. Mm-hmm. We created a social media. We created a website. I got some volunteers. And then we created a crowdfunding campaign on Kickstarter, which I'm sure you're familiar with, right? Mm-hmm. So this is what my thought is. I'm going to launch the Kickstarter. Yeah. I used some students from a local university to create the Kickstarter video. It looked pretty good. It wasn't great, but it looked pretty good. And I thought to myself, oh, man, I'm going to get... we're going to raise this money by noon, right? Mm-hmm. The anticipation was awesome. Everybody was psyched up. We were ready to do it. We launched the Kickstarter campaign. Nothing. An hour goes by. Nothing. Oof. 2 hours go by. Nothing. The whole day goes by. Nothing. The second day, nothing. And you can only... Kickstarter is a 30-day thing. And it's all or nothing. So we were trying to raise $100,000, right? $100,000 was going to buy the plane and then affect some of the repairs so we could get it back to the United States. And I thought, okay, the first couple of days, people are just getting to know it's being shared. We were sharing it on our social media, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And by the 10th day, we had like $8. Oh. And we spent a lot of money and a lot of time creating a Kickstarter campaign that I thought was pretty good. And in the end, I'm going to cut right to the chase. We didn't raise anywhere near the money that we needed. The crowdfunding completely failed. The people in the LGBT community and part of the Pride organization took to social media and made fun of the fact that I didn't raise any money and blah, blah, blah. Blah. It was just very unsupportive. Mm-hmm. And so it was a big failure and a big humbling experience for me. But it didn't stop there. It got worse. Oh. So then I had to tell the guy that had the plane, I had to keep stalling him. I kept stalling him. And he was fine because I thought to myself, how many buyers of DC-3s are there? So it's going to sit for a while to give me time to recover. Lo and behold, somebody showed up and bought the plane. And it was devastating because, this was like the universe was like, this plane is right here. It's easy for me to get to. It's everything I needed. And it was taken out of my hands. And so I reached out to the guy who bought the plane, and I started talking to him. He's a very nice guy. And I said, hey, would you be interested in letting me fly your plane for my project? And I will pay for the restoration. I'll raise the money to pay for the restoration. I'll fly the plane, and I'll promote your organization. And his organization is a very worthy organization. They find missing servicemen, that crashed and their bodies have never been recovered.
Gotcha.
So, and I wasn't really expecting anything, and then all of a sudden he sent me an email and said, yes, I'll do it. You can use my plane. Well, the problem, there's multiple problems. The contract to buy the plane was very convoluted. There was a lot of issues between him and the seller, and I tried to act as a mediator to get things resolved and get the plane, and all the while, I still couldn't raise the money because part of raising money for a project like this is people don't believe you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Until you have some sort of physical thing that they can touch. So my whole thought was, if I can get the plane and then people see the plane, then I could. So I was gonna try and raise the money to buy the plane, and then once I had the plane, I'd raise the money to fly the mission separately, right? So I knew that having the plane was critical. I thought, okay, I'll have the plane through this guy, and then I can say, technically, I have the plane, and then I would raise the money. It just didn't work. I mean, just life doesn't work that way, it just doesn't work. There were so many obstacles. There were so many challenges. The time it took to mediate the issues between the seller and the buyer, the time it took to mediate the issues between two countries to figure out what is needed to get the plane across the country, because you can't just fly across the border.
Nope.
And on top of that, this plane had a lot of issues. There were possible corrosion issues, and so there was, now it was, okay, it's another $20,000 to pull the wings off, to do a corrosion inspection, and then a fee for this, a fee for that, a fee for this, a fee for that, a bribe here, this and that. It was a ton of money, and I didn't have that. And so, I'm trying to run my own business, which was having a difficult time at the time as well. So, long story short, the plane just languished. It's still in Mexico.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, so it's getting further along, but it's still there.
Yeah.
So, and then we all know when you use somebody else's stuff, there are always strings.
Yeah.
Right? And there were. Legitimate.
But they were there. And
I was like, that's not what I wanted, because I wanted to have total control so that if I was in, I'll just say, Chittagong in India, right? And I decided, hey, I want to stay here for a bit, and I want to assist the local LGBT community or group there. And so I'm going to, instead of being here for 2 days, I'm going to be here for a month.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to ask permission for that. Other than normal from the government. But I didn't want someone else saying, hey, you need to go. I promised that we're going to have a media event at this next thing. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, I felt like I didn't have the control.
You didn't have autonomy.
So I was not very happy. Like, I wasn't really happy. So after a while, I just backed out, and I said, I'll just find my own plane. And there's a weird sense that I'm not done with this plane yet, that, the way the universe works, it's like real estate. In real estate they have a term, most big deals die 2 or 3 times before you close.
Huh.
I kind of think that this is what this is this deal's going to go back and forth a few times and maybe whatever. And I'm a big believer that even if you don't know what the outcome is, you show up every day.
Oh, yeah.
You just show up. And that's what I'm trying to do right now. So ultimately, PrideFlight will happen. Whether it's in a DC-3 or another airplane, I don't know yet. But I'm moving forward. I'm just taking steps forward. I figure that's going to reveal itself. So a lot of people ask me, why do you want to take on a project like this? This seems like just a lot of work. And my answer is, anything worthwhile is going to be a lot of work. And if it was easy, everybody would do it. I mean, everybody wants to be a millionaire, but you got to work at it. You got to be there. You got to try it. And whether it's a project like this or anything else, I myself always do my very best and give my all. Whether I succeed or fail is almost secondary. I try. I'm trying. And And I don't know all the answers, because, people often say to me, oh, well, what about this? Or what about that? Or what about this? And there are times when I have to say, I don't know what that answer is.
Yep.
I'll figure it out, but I'm moving forward.
Still figuring it out. And maybe I won't do it. Maybe I'll never be able to do it. I don't know. I don't know that. But maybe I will. I don't know that either. So that's kind of what I'm doing with PrideFlight at the moment is I'm just moving forward. Mm-hmm. Now, my vision of what I think it is and probably how it's going to end up being may be different, but the way I think it is right now is I get this plane, I energize the community, the local LGBT community where I live now, Chicagoland area, and we get the plane here, and a lot of people come out and they invest their time and they help clean it up and do whatever we can do that doesn't violate any FAA requirements. We get volunteers to help with the engines, to help with the systems, to make sure that it's as safe as it can be. We get corporate sponsors to pay for the fuel and all of the other fees that are going to be involved. And then I give up my time to fly it. And this airplane is an icon of aviation. It changed and revolutionized the way air travel was done when it became on the scene. It was built by the McDonnell Douglas company in California, Southern California. And, a couple of the luminaries from the airlines went to Mr. Douglas and said, hey, we want you to build us this plane. We need to carry more passengers so that we can become profitable. It needs to go this far. It needs to do this and that, and gave all these parameters. But we want 3 engines because that's what they were used to. And the engineers and the designers at the McDonnell Douglas plant in California came up with this radical airplane design that could accomplish all those things with 2 engines. And it's a testament to the engineering skills of that team because that airplane is still flying today, 85 years later, and still reliable for the most part. And so I chose it because I wanted a hardy, sturdy, tough, forgiving airplane that could handle just about anything that this circumnavigation would throw at it. And so I'm kind of focused on that airplane. Sure, I can fly a faster airplane or a more sophisticated airplane, but let me tell you, when that DC-3 flies in, she's a head turner. Mm-hmm. She is an icon. She has a reputation. It's like watching the grand dame of aviation come to your town. Mm-hmm. It in itself is a spectacle. Forget the project. It in itself is a spectacle. So I wanted that because I thought that's the kind of airplane, number one, that will take me through this circumnavigation safely, and secondarily will elicit a positive response from everyone that sees her flying in. Now, having said all that, that's until they find out it's a gay plane. Yeah, right. To be fair though, it's big, it's loud, and it's impossible to ignore. I mean, much like the gay community altogether. So that's
good point. Good point. And I struggled with the livery. So livery is the term they use for the paint scheme of an airplane. So I am going to have some rainbow colors on the wings and on the tail.
Nice.
They'll be subtle, but they'll be there.
Yeah.
Because, you don't want to fly into Bahrain and then slap them in the face with your rainbows. Yeah. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I do want it to be recognizable, and I do want to make a statement. This is an aviation project. It's a human endeavor. It's a human achievement. But it is also a gay project. Mm-hmm. I'm a gay pilot promoting goodwill and education about the gay community. A lot of people think, we have it so good here in the United States because now, especially, we can be out and about and be proud and there's some repercussions yet. We still have a ways to go, but as a general rule, we cannot be out and proud. But some countries you can be killed or lose your job or lose your family or whatever. Yeah. So I want to go out and say, hey, we're not part of this sliver of the community. We're part of the actual fabric of the global community. And we contribute to global achievements, whether it's in sports, aviation, finance, business, politics. I mean, there's a reason why I think it's important that there are firsts. Mm-hmm. People say, well, I'm sure there were gay pilots who flew. Yes, there were, but they were closeted.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah.
So why is it important to say the first National Football League quarterback or the first gay swimmer or the first
gay kiss between skiers,
Yeah.
or the first gay politician, Harvey Milk, that was really out there.
Yeah.
Or, now we actually have a presidential candidate that is gay, openly gay, and nobody's like killing him.
Yeah,
You know what I
exactly.
mean? I'm sure he has threats and whatever. But
And we talk about this because it matters.
because it matters. It matters to be first, to show that we are part of every facet of life. We're not just on Halstead or in our communities like it used to be. It's like, oh, they're over there. We never go there. But,
Yeah.
they're not out here. They're not in our churches. They're not in our schools. They're not in our businesses. They're in over there.
Yeah.
But now we're in a different time. And so now it's important for us to say, hey, we're everywhere. We are in your churches. We are in your businesses. We are political leaders. We are achievers.
Yeah.
We're athletes. We're adventurers. We're scientists. We're this and that and everything else in between. That's why it's important. It's not just that it's, hey, look at us. I'm doing this fabulous flight around the world. It is not like that. PrideFlight is not about that. PrideFlight really is about being proud of being gay. I'm a pilot. I'm proud of what I can achieve because of my skill.
Yeah.
Period.
And one thing I did want to bring up, since we're on this subject, like a tiny thing came across, it was big news when Taiwan had their legalization of same-sex marriage. And then, a few months later, it was Pride time. And so I was in Chicago. I've never been to a Pride parade, by the way. And so the one in Chicago,
really?
yeah, I haven't. I don't know. It's just like wherever I was, it was just never came up. And I haven't, I didn't come out until my early 20s. So I haven't been out for very long, but out long enough. And I don't know. I never came across one. And it wasn't ever convenient for me anyway. But anyway.
Pride wasn't convenient?
Because first of all, when I lived in Jersey, it was a little bit far from where I wanted to be. They only had like 2 major ones. And also the queer community ain't the best over there. Not that nothing against
In New
it.
Jersey, it isn't that surprising.
It's just anytime I was in that community, there was always something that made me feel singled out. I was usually only the colored one, or I was the only one under 30, or I was the only one who is an out trans woman in some of these, in some of these groups. And it just felt, I don't know, man, every single time I would look around and I'm like, I want to say that I'm like you, but a lot of the times I don't get treated that way. Then I come to Chicago and it's completely different.
Right.
And so there's a lot of colored trans people. But anyway, yeah, like I was saying, I go to the Pride Parade that was in Chicago, and there was a group of Taiwanese people holding a Taiwan flag, and everyone went nuts. And I'm like, it made me feel great because I'm like, yes. Fuck yes, man. This is something they fought for. This is something they wanted, and they got it, and it's amazing. Share the news. And so that it has the same spirit of what you're talking about.
This is what I envisioned for PrideFlight. And this is another thing, too. It is a personal journey for me as well. It's coming to terms with standing up for who I am instead of always keeping it on the back burner. Being out there in a public way, a very public way, and say, okay, I'm a gay pilot, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to try to do this. And I was telling a publisher friend of mine, I said, I don't know what kind of support I'll get from the gay community because this is outside the norm of what they support. I don't have a six-pack. I'm not young. I don't have a thick head of hair. I'm all the things that the internet and social media do not celebrate.
At least not at this point. I mean, it's not
at this point. And that's one of the things, too, that I want to really emphasize is that I want to be representative of what's more about our community than just what that small segment is. And there are a lot more people, I think, like me out there than there are those that you see on social media, and what have you. So this project is, first and foremost, it's a feat of aviation. Whether you're gay, straight, male, female, and everything in between, it is fundamentally a feat of aviation. Whoever the pilot is, it's a feat of aviation. Secondarily, it is a human endeavor because this airplane is not it's not like an airline. You know, it's not going to be serving cocktails. First of all, it rattles and shakes. It's extremely loud. It's like, think about 100 Harley Davidsons all revving their engines. That's what it sounds like, even with a headset on. And it's not pressurized, so we can't fly higher than 10 or 11,000 feet for any extended period of time. So we don't go over mountains. We have to go around mountains. And if we're flying over oceans, if, God forbid, there's an engine problem or a catastrophic mechanical failure and we have to ditch, we have precious few minutes to determine what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and get ready to do it. And then if we survive the ditching in the ocean, now we're in the middle of the North Atlantic on the first part or the Northern Pacific on the second part. Not exactly Bora Bora.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's very dangerous. And the another consideration is because we're a gay crew or be a gay project, we're going to be flying into countries where LGBT people are persecuted, if not killed, or anything else in between. So there may be countries that, number one, refuse to let us land if they know that we're a gay plane, and that's the least threatening one. The other one could be they refuse to give us fuel, they refuse to give us services, or they shoot at us. Some crazy shoots at us because we're low and slow. And so as we're landing into an airport in a hostile area, someone says, oh, that's that gay plane. I'm just going to blow him out of the sky, or I'm going to shoot my rifle, because the DC-3 flies low and slow. So an easy target for someone to just sit there. And it's not like it's steel-plated. You're flying along, la, 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 la. You're focusing on landing. And this, bullets are coming through the bottom of the plane. Very, very dangerous. And then the last part, and I think the biggest challenge, is we don't get the support of the local governments. So we don't get protection. Somebody sabotages the plane. Someone that doesn't like, what have you, sabotages the plane. So we have a lot of challenges beyond just the aviation aspect that we're trying to mitigate. And I don't think we're going to address all of them. We're trying to mitigate it. So what I say to people when they say, why are you doing this? I'm saying it's a feat of aviation. Second, it's a human endeavor to overcome a challenge. And that's a big part of it. And then the third thing, and I think they're all equally important, but the third thing is it is a triumph of education to demonstrate that we are part of the greater fabric of the global community and that we contribute to human achievement. Not just, hey, what do you bring to the table? Oh, I go to the bars, I get laid, and we have an open relationship, and I drink, and I do this and do that, and it's sex, sex, sex. No, we're much more than that. A lot more than that. And so, our society and our culture as a whole is a collection of human achievements, individual human achievements. I want to demonstrate that we, as a community, are also part of that collective human achievement. Whether it's being the first, gay quarterback or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, we all contribute our piece to the puzzle. It's not just being gay as we're sexually focused and partiers or anything. We're much more than that.
To be fair, in this day and age, I don't think they think that anymore.
Who?
And the public. I mean, dude, we'll look at Apple. The CEO is gay.
Yeah, but see, I don't agree with that because, yes, those are exceptions to the rule. I think as a general rule, all you have to do is go to Indiana. Go to Indianapolis and tell me that. I'm going to tell you that most of the people there in that community believe that gay people are just sexual deviants, going to hell, not Christian or anything like that. And so they're still out there. In Chicago, it's very easy to believe that, hey, we all believe in the diversity of our community. But there are many, 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 many places in this country and outside of this country.
Whoa, you're gonna speak to me about?
Yeah.
I'm piles of marginalized kinds of things. Trust me, I know.
But that's what I'm saying is when you make a statement like, "Oh no," in this day and age, there's still a big fight to have. And forget people like you. You have a bigger fight in a much more centralized and focused area.
Yes.
So you could say, oh, as a gay man, you have the easiest part of the fight, right? Because you're right. We are we are mainstream now, aren't we? Right?
It's a little bit easier, yeah.
Yeah. So but what I'm saying is, as easy as it is, we still have that. And when you leave this country, it's worse.
It gets worse, yeah.
Except in Europe. In Europe, I think it's better
here and there.
But I mean, so the whole point I'm trying to make is that this flight is about taking that community and saying to those people that may have those feelings that, wait, you might not like a transgender person, you may not like a gay person, but they are part of your community, and they're more than just what you think they are.
True,
they're more than that, and I think that is the thing that drives me. I don't want people to focus on the fact, oh, he's gay. I want them to focus on the fact that he is a human being achieving a goal who happens to be gay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And in my ultimate utopia, that's all that would really matter. It wouldn't matter whether you're gay, straight, lesbian, transgender, non-binary, and everything in between. It wouldn't matter. What matters is, as a human being, how do you act? What do you contribute to society?
Exactly.
What do you contribute to a relationship, etc.? And that's a very unlikely position for me to be in. I never thought I would be in that position to even have the ability to have a potential impact. And it scares the shit out of me. Because I am not the ambassador. I am not that person. I am not the activist as a general rule. I didn't grow up that way. I didn't live my life that way. Yet here I am in this position, and if I do this flight, and it's a big if, but if I do this flight, then all of a sudden I'm going to find myself in a position of being a very public ambassador for our community, which is something I've never done before.
True.
Anyway, so that's why PrideFlight is important. I think it's important to me, and I'm going to try it. And I'm scared out of my wits on multiple levels. I'm scared that I'm going to die. I'm scared that I'm going to fail. I'm scared that I'm going to be ridiculed. I'm scared about just not having the ability to do it because I'm getting older, and this is going to be an endurance challenge for a younger person, let alone someone who's going to be 60 soon. And so, I have diabetes.
Yep.
So what happened? I mean, I'm nervous about all of those things, yet I am still moving forward.
That's the way to do it.
So anyway, that's what PrideFlight is. So, we're going to take a little bit of take a break, and when we come back, we're going to finish talking about PrideFlight. We're going to talk about flying a little bit, and
we'll close out the show.
We'll close out the show. Yeah. It's not so bad. I mean, I was a little bit nervous about having to re-record it, but a lot of it came flowing back. So
yeah.
So anyway, you're listening to the DJ Doran Show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the DJ Doran Show. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Call 312-235-2281 to speak to DJ.
I'm so far away, and I can't see for good. Any chance that I clear the background, I will say I would. Yeah, I would. Face the arrows clear, like I should. Face the arrows clear, like I would. Look at all the reds.
All right. Well, we're back. You're listening to the DJ Doran Show, and I'm. Are you here? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Did I do it right?
Yeah. This should be off.
That should be off. Okay,
There you
there
go.
it is. All right.
Technical shit, man.
Oh my God, there's so many buttons to push, and I'm a pilot, no less. But it's like I got everything spread out, and I got frazzled when the show we did prior didn't work out. So now I'm
So
not in
walking on eggshells, man.
I'm not in that flow anymore.
Yeah.
So you know what? I'm not really thrilled about it. So we've been talking about PrideFlight, my bid to fly a World War II era DC-3 around the world on a goodwill mission. No political agenda. That brings back to another point. Someone asked me, well, are you going to deliver HIV drugs? And are you going to do this? And are you going to do that? And I said, no, I'm not. And they were like, oh my God, why not? There's a reason why. I don't want to have any political agenda, no hot button issues. I don't want to have any controversy where a country says, we're not going to let you land because you're carrying PrEP.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Also, carrying drugs is probably
carrying
significantly more.
Right. And
more
so I want to take all of that out of the equation and just make this about aviation. Make this about human beings. You know, we're going to have a pretty diverse crew, and I don't know if I told you, but we have a transgender A&P mechanic.
Right.
So A&P stands for Airframe and Power Plant. She's a very talented mechanic, and there's a story that goes with that, too. When she first applied for the job, she was so nervous, and she was telling me that she was transgender, and I couldn't really tell by her voice on the phone. So I invited her to come to a planning meeting. So there was a knock at the door, and I said, come in, but nobody came in. And so I go out there and I look and I see this really tall guy, and he looked like a guy, right? Like he looked like a guy. And I opened the door and he goes, hi, I'm Tasha. And of course, when I shook his hand, see, he wanted me to call him, his pronoun. So I did that. But he had nail polish on his fingernails. So, and he was really nervous. Now I could tell 'cause when I shook his hand, it was all sweaty. So I walk outside and I said, listen, I kept calling him Tasha because that's how he originally introduced herself.
Yeah.
But what he showed up was his male version because he was like, I guess he thought that would make a better impression. So I said, Tasha, listen to me. I said, are you a good mechanic? She goes, yes. And I said, can you turn a wrench, which is a term a mechanic uses? And he goes, yes. And I said, then I don't give a shit. Mm-hmm. I don't give a shit however you show up. Be who you are and be comfortable. And I said, and I don't think anybody else is gonna really care either. So I said, as far as I'm concerned, you introduce yourself as Tasha. If that's how you want me to introduce you to the crew, I will introduce you however you want me, whatever pronoun you want me to use. And so he goes, at that point, he goes, okay, I want you to introduce me as Tasha. I said, okay, I will introduce you as Tasha. So she came in the house, and it was funny because I'm a big guy, like pretty muscular guy. She is bigger and more muscular, right? And I was like, what does she have to worry about? She can beat up everyone in this room, right? But she was really nervous. So she goes in the living room, and I introduce her as Tasha. And I didn't notice it at first because it was dark out, but she had eyeliner on. Like, what do you put on your eyelids?
Eyeshadow.
Eyeshadow. She had eyeshadow on, and her nails were painted. And so she sits on the couch, and they start talking, and I'm keeping an ear open to see if there's any controversy, right? Because I don't want anything like that in my house. But I knew these people, and I knew there wouldn't be, but just in case, right? Because Tasha didn't present as a feminine transgender woman. Mm-hmm. So I thought maybe there might be some
conflict.
Right. But as many times as I fucked up your pronouns, it's like thank God you're patient. But
very much so, yes.
Yes, but I try. But literally I'm an old dog that is trying to learn a new trick.
Yeah.
And so I was in the kitchen, I was making something and getting pizza ready because I ordered pizza for everyone. I get pizza ready, and I look in, and I was like, I don't hear anything. And what do you think I saw?
Something?
Yeah. I saw all these people in the living room talking about airplanes. Not one person gave two shits about her being transgender. And from that moment on, I'm like, this is I get goosebumps remembering that. From that moment on, I realized that this is what PrideFlight is about, fundamentally, is what it's about.
Yes.
It's not about labels. It's not about anything. It's not about ideologies. It's not about any of that. It's about human beings interacting. Mm-hmm. And afterwards, she had a great time. She had a wonderful time. And afterwards, everybody said their goodbye, and she left. And I went to shake her hand, and she hugged me, and she said thank you. Mm-hmm. And from that point on, she's part of our crew. Now, she's had some issues with the drugs she's taking, the hormones, and it made her hear voices. And apparently, from her words to me, the transgender community in Indianapolis was not very kind to her because I guess she didn't project what they expected her to project in
They
her
just
appearance.
they were just being mean.
They're just being mean. I don't know what that. So and she didn't know how to deal with it, so she went back to being a man. So now she's a man. He's a man right now, and but like I told him, even then I said I still don't give a shit as long as you can work on the airplane. That's all I care about. And so, but she was like the first person that I met that I knew. Not to get into a separate issue, but in this particular case, she was the first person I knew that was transgender that I just knew it was legitimate. Like she was a woman in a man's body, literally tortured.
Yeah, that's how it feels like.
But a lot of times I've met people that I didn't feel that. Like I never felt that. I always thought, oh, they're dressing up in whatever gender they want to be, but it's not. I don't care. But it didn't feel.
It didn't sink in.
It didn't sink in. But
yeah,
her
there you go.
Talking to her and taking the time to talk to her and really understanding and listening to her reality, that sunk in. That connected with me, and I was like, I never knew that. I never knew that.
Yeah,
I never
being
knew
trans
that
sucks.
existed. What?
I said yes. Being trans sucks.
Well, I never knew that there was like a torture that went to it. Like I always thought that, it's the flavor of the month to be trans. Everyone's trans. It's like
Shit.
But when I met her, I was like, this is not a flavor of the month. This is someone who is literally in the wrong body for however it happened, whether it was God or this or that or whatever you want to believe. She was in the wrong body.
Yes.
And she wasn't really an attractive woman. She was a barely attractive man. And so by society standards.
Uh-huh.
So my thought was, how does someone, because like I don't think I'm an attractive person by today's stand. I'm just like average, right?
Sure.
So you have all these societal standards that say, oh, you have to have a six-pack abs and you have to have full wavy hair and perfect white straight teeth and muscles and big pecs and calves and whatever. I'm none of that, right? So that's what society pushes on you. So you always feel like you're a failure. What is it like when you're in the wrong body and you're like who'd I meet? I met somebody in Ogunquit, a transgender. I think it was transgender. I don't know, but she was a male presenting as a woman, and she was beautiful. I would never have known. Never have known. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do, loud and clear. Yes.
So what happens when you're like that? I think it's easier, don't you?
You're legitimately asking me because I can educate you.
Well, I'm just saying is like if you're a male and you're presenting as a woman and you're a good-looking woman, I would think it would be easier.
Well, okay, all right, hold on. Let's unpack that real quick.
While you're doing that, just so you know, ladies and gentlemen, I ordered food and I just want to make sure that it arrives.
So, real quick. Okay, sure. If you're not, if you are very binary, so if you present as male or if you present as female, sure, there are certain classifications or certain things that people are very, uptight about because of how society portrays beauty. But also in our society, especially in this country, a lot of the times beauty tends to be portrayed in a sense of color as well. I mean, when I was coming out as trans, when I was really coming into my own and I was trying to find role models, I couldn't find any. I couldn't find any women with my hair. I couldn't find any, even cis women. I couldn't find magazines with models that had my colored skin, that were as tall as me, that were, as outspoken as me. And, none of them wore glasses. So I'm like, I was trying to find my own damn sense of fashion and beauty when I had no direction because that's just how society, wanted it. And so I ditched that a long time ago. So when you're trans and you have a completely different perspective on these kinds of things, you understand beauty in a completely different light.
Right. So. Listen, I'm grateful I don't have to deal with that.
Yes, good for you.
And but my thought is for her, my heart ached for her. Because, did you ever see the movie The World According to Garp?
No.
Well, John Lithgow was a transgender woman in that movie. And I just thought that when she presented herself as a woman by societal standards,
Sure.
people would comment negatively. And what my thought was is, how can you deal with all of the baggage that comes with being transgender in itself,
Sure.
and all of the challenges that come with it, and then on top of that, have to deal with.
I can tell you, I have many first-hand accounts, friend.
Yeah, but you're a good-looking
Not,
human.
no, not to society, mate. Not even close. That's just how it works, man. Listen, all right, yeah.
You're
no,
not. I'm just telling you, you're a good-looking woman.
Why, thank you. If only everybody shared that sentiment, but they don't.
They
And
don't.
so-
But you know what? Listen, I am not. Like,
But no. But we're not talking about we're not talking about what's attractive and what's not. We're talking about how it is to feel attractive when you're trans. That's a completely different thing. I know I feel attractive, but no one takes me seriously as a woman ever. I am always overshadowed in that way, and I really don't get it. But I mean, because I see myself in a certain light. But when we talk about Tasha, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, maybe there's some circumstances where it's never going to work out well for her, but that doesn't have to be all that there is. Yes, you're tortured by being trans, but you also have to remember, coming to your own is a completely different fight than being accepted.
That's what I was proud of myself because I gave some really good advice, even though I was ignorant about it, But I said to her, the only thing I can tell you, and I don't know anything, because my mom, when I came out, I was really confused. I was like, I have had two lives for like 20 years.
Sure.
And I was like, Mom, I don't know how to reconcile and be one person. I don't know how to be gay. I didn't even come out till I was almost 40, for God's sake, right? So I was like, I don't have any history. I'd never been to a gay bar. I'd never been to gay pride. I'd never been in the gay community. I never knew too many other gay people except who I met through AOL for sex. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have any of that experience. And in her wisdom, she said to me, well, I don't really know how to tell you to be a good gay person, but I will give you this piece of advice. If you focus on being a good human being, then everything you are, everything you do, everything you're involved in will be filtered through that. And I'm telling you, Rachel, that saved my life. That was the thing that held on to me when I didn't know what to do. I said, I want to be a good person. I want to be a good human being. And so I had an opportunity to share that with Tasha, and I said, listen, that's where your focus is. No matter what struggles you're going through, focus on fundamentally, you are the biggest common denominator is your human being. So focus on that. Focus on being good at that, and everything else will fall into place. And I think it helped her, but it really taught me a lesson about authenticity. It taught me a lesson about having personal integrity about who you are and what you stand for, right? Now, this is really serious now. I didn't really mean to get into this, but I'm just telling you, is PrideFlight to me is about that. It is about being who you are, standing for what you are in a public way, demonstrating that, no, I'm not just going to be in the shadows. I'm not going to be behind in the curtains. I am going to be out there, out front, doing that. And I'm going to be... and I'm using my skill set as a pilot, as an experienced pilot, to demonstrate that. And I've never done it before. Mm-hmm. Never. And so I'm telling all of you that are listening, this is brand new territory. This is why it's almost like coming out again, but in a much more public fashion. So on that note, that's a whole other show. We can do a whole other show on that. And it's interesting, and I didn't mean to segue into that, but that is an important part of it, because her being part of PrideFlight was, first of all, an education for me. It was a push against my comfort zone of what I was used to. It was scary for her to put herself out there and to say, hey, I love aviation. I want to be part of this project, but this is my reality. But she did it anyway, and that's what I told her. And we're still friends to this day. Nice. So I'm sorry she's stuck in Indianapolis, but that's also another whole other show. So anyway, it was a pretty good show, right?
Yeah.
So not bad. I think we have it dialed in better now. So we now know the importance of having a show checklist.
Yes.
To double check. So you've been listening to the DJ Doran Show. You know, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Stitcher, SoundCloud, Podomatic, and a few other places in between. Anywhere that any major podcasting source, you could find the DJ Doran Show. I hope you'll give us a listen and follow us. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our website is DJDoran.com. I don't even know my own name. DJDoran.com. We're still getting the website up and running, but you can go there and you can follow us there. So hopefully you will. Until we get together next time, have a wonderful evening. I'm DJ, your host, and
I am Rachel.
And we'll see you next week. Have a wonderful evening.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to another edition of the DJ Doran Show. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Podomatic, Stitcher, and all of the other major podcasting sites. Just search for The DJ Doran Show.